Okay, cool. That's fine. All right. So, hi everyone. My name is Arin Eakins. I am a composer and sound designer for game audio here in the United States. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. And today I just wanted to talk about in game audio as well as some practical approaches to game audio and what that means exactly. And I also want to talk about some really affordable ways to get into this. So I'll be sending a lot of links of free software you can download and really good affordable hardware that I'm still using right now. Just to let you know, it is possible to do all this on a budget, which is what I'm working with. So yeah, I'm just going to share some of my experiences today, and just to give you a lay of the land type of situation, I'll just be working through this presentation I have prepared for you. And then at the end of the presentation, I'll just take question and answer type of thing. So I encourage you to be jotting down your questions as I go, because I may have quite a bit of information I'm throwing out in this presentation. So just kind of be prepared for that. But yeah, anyways, so I will go ahead and start here. So yeah, so approaches to composition and sound effects design. So composition and sound effects, for one, are two very different things. So I'll be kind of splitting this presentation into two sections. What it means to compose, like write the music, versus what it means to design the sound effects in a video game. So getting started. First off, we need to talk about hardware and software. So the things you're going to need to get into making game audio or music production of any sort is of course, you're going to need a computer. You're going to need some recording software, also known as a DAW, a D-A-W. You're going to need a recording interface. And I can show you what a recording interface looks like. I have one right here. Let me unplug it. So this is a recording interface. And some of you may already know this, and if so, very cool. This is basically a souped up sound card for your computer. You just you can USB it. And this little guy right here allows you to process higher quality audio as opposed to just using your sound card. And these things will hook up to studio monitors, and they can just USB into your computer. I'll be sending you a link for all this stuff. I just wanted to show you all what it actually looked like. So yeah, this is what a recording interface looks like. Fun fact, I bought this guy for $40 about 3 years ago, and I've gotten a lot of mileage out of this thing. So moving on, so you're going to need that, and you're going to need a microphone. You're going to need a microphone for your sound effects designing. We'll get into that later. But if you don't have a microphone, works fantastic. It has a high quality microphone in it. And I've used this quite a bit going out and about, like just recording some stuff, like, just various recordings out in nature and stuff. And of course, you're going to need some headphones or some studio monitors, which I can send you some links for those as well. So really, if you can get your hands on all that hardware, you'll be pretty set. And some great software you can download, the recording software, is a program I started out with called Reaper. Reaper is a fantastic software for recording, and the best part is it is completely free. I'm going to go ahead and send you a link to the Reaper download. And what's great about Reaper is, since it's free, so many people have downloaded it. And there is such a great online community for Reaper. Like, there are so many tutorial videos on YouTube. So yeah, check out Reaper. People like to say that this program named Pro Tools is the industry standard, and don't get me wrong, it is the industry standard. But from my experience, Reaper can do anything any other program can use. You just gotta get on YouTube and look up how to do it. It's super easy. Another great program is Ableton Live Lite. Ableton can get expensive. It's what I use right now. I just went ahead and bought Ableton because I do a lot of electronic music, and Ableton's fantastic for electronic music. Some other great free ones are Cakewalk and Audacity. Audacity is actually also what I started out with when I was about 16, I think. I was just plugging in my guitar and recording some goofy sounds when I was a teenager. And Behringer is a great company to purchase an affordable interface from. That's a brand that my interface is from right now, is from Behringer. Once upon a time ago, if you were to look at some online forums, they would say stuff like, "Oh, Behringer's not a good brand," but they've really upped their game over the past few years, and they're an extremely good hardware company to invest in. They've got some really good stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and send you all a link to to Audacity. It's just because it's free and really accessible as well. Audacity. Okay. So these are two really good recording softwares to check out that are free. I highly encourage Reaper. Really good. That's 10 out of 10 would recommend. All right, so I want to talk now about how I got started in game audio. So I went to school for music composition. I have my bachelor's degree in music composition, and that's by no means a requirement at all. You don't need that to learn how to write music. That's just something I did for myself. So I've been writing music for quite a long time now. But game audio is a completely different animal than anything I did in school. It's its own unique thing. So I don't think you need to go to school to learn how to do game audio. So don't get discouraged there. So how I got started is I needed to put together a portfolio because I didn't have any kind of game audio anything to show for. Because I started scouring some forums, trying to look for some gigs writing for video games, because I love to play video games. So I thought it'd be cool to write music for them. And what I found is a lot of people were asking for all these, saying, "Hey, I'm a composer. I want to write music for your game," but they didn't have anything to show for it. So, putting myself in the shoes of a game developer, I thought, okay, well, why would I hire somebody to write for me if I don't know what they can do? So I had to put together a portfolio. And one really fun way I discovered to put together something is something I'd like to share with you all, is I got my start from, I would take people's gameplay. I would get on YouTube and look for a video game I liked, and I would find the gameplay. And then I would download that video, and then I would scrub out the audio and insert my own music and my own sound effects. An example of this. Thank you. Just read your comment. So this is one of my favorite video games. It's not my favorite. First off, my favorite video game is Zelda Breath of the Wild. Masterpiece of a game. Fantastic. Score, sound effects, gameplay. Love it. But this is also one of my favorite games. It's called Hyper Light Drifter. So I just took the audio or somebody's gameplay. Of course, I messaged their channel and said, "Hey, can I use your video for, how did I get permission?" And of course, he was like, "Yeah, sure, that's cool." But yeah, so I'm just now clicking on it, so I'll watch it with you all. Yeah, so all the audio you're hearing is audio I've scrubbed out and replaced with my own. And very much so tried to stay in the spirit of the game while trying to create my own identity. So yeah. And like I said, that proved to be a very effective thing because I now had like a 30-second clip of something I've done, and it encapsulated so much. It showcased that I could write music and that I could create sound design, that I could create sound effects. So instead of sending somebody a 5-minute long demo reel or like tons and tons of videos, I'm like, hey, here's this very small 30-second package, and it showcases that I can do everything. Please check it out. So, but what I learned is it only got me so far, actually. That got me my first gig. And my first gig was through something called a game jam. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with what game jams are, but I just recently learned about what a game jam is. And basically a game jam, excuse me, a game jam is an indie competition hosted on a website called itch.io. Itch.io is a very good community. It's a very good website for hosting independent games, and people will host game jams and post them there. So basically the idea behind a game jam is these teams will form, and the teams will have X amount of time to put together a team and produce a video game. And I got my first paid gig writing music and sound designing from this game jam. I joined this game jam as a sound designer mostly, and I wrote just a few musical pieces. We submitted the game, and after the game was over, the game developer was like, hey, I'm putting together a large-scale version of this game, and I'm offering to pay you guys. Is this something you all would be interested in? So of course I jumped on that. And I'm going to send you the link to this website. This is the website for my first summer game jam. This is what the game jam was called. So yeah, you know, like these people will host game jams and they'll post guidelines and they'll say, here's the theme of the game. Here's how much time you have, etc. Let me send you the itch.io. So the itch.io is a fantastic website to just keep up with, because for one, there are a ton of indie games. Like, these are all independently made games, which I think is fantastic. And people will host game jams there. So you can also get an idea of like what people are doing, but also it's a fantastic way to network, because these people are super easy to get a hold of now. You can just find a game you like and then be like, hey, I'm trying to get started in this. Here's my portfolio. Do you need anybody to do any work for you? And you'd be surprised how effective that is. I've gotten a lot of good feedback from that type of thing. So all that to say, 2 great ways to get started: portfolio and game jams, because game jams will also add to your portfolio. The unfortunate thing behind all this, though, is that equals a lot of free work. You can kind of think of it like a tattoo artist. You know, whenever you're apprenticing to be a tattoo artist, you do a lot of free tattoos on your friends. So that way you can put together your portfolio so people want to come to you to pay them for tattoos. Well, I think it's the same thing with getting started with this kind of thing. You have to do a lot of free work to build the portfolio so people can say, oh, this person knows how to do what I want. Cool. Then you start getting paid. So that's that's my insight, or that's my experiences on how I've gotten started so far. And yeah, itch.io is really good. And I actually just, I'm just responding to your comment here. I just discovered it recently because I was just, you know, kind of getting on Steam and getting on the Nintendo Switch Marketplace and finding independent games. So I want to kind of switch gears a little bit here, and I'm going to start getting into the music writing aspect of the presentation. So before I move on, does anybody here have any experience with writing music? Are there any music writers or producers or musicians in here? Okay. Okay, cool, that's fine. I haven't made music ever. Okay. Cool, so this will be very educational for you, I believe. So one thing I discovered with, hold on, I got another comment here. Okay, yeah, same one, okay. So one thing I've discovered with game audio is it's quite a bit different than any form of music I've explored. And I think I talked about that briefly at the beginning of this. And so this may be getting into some fairly complicated territory. So if at any point I'm not making any sense, please feel free to stop me and ask a question. I'm totally open to that. So composition, let's start there with composition. What do I mean by composition? That means fancy word for writing music. Basically means you are the music writer if you are the composer. So I want to talk about two terms, linear music and nonlinear music. So the idea behind linear music is, you can think of it as a complete track. It starts playing at the beginning and it goes all the way to the end. And that song is not over until it goes from point A to point B, and then it's just over. Then you have to play the song again. And that's songs like pop songs, rock and roll, like just anything, most things you would hear. Excuse me. So linear music, you can literally think of it as going linearly from point A to point B. And that is not so much the case in, sorry, I was just checking my questions. Not so much the case in game music. In game music, we're going to experience something called nonlinear music. So nonlinear music is a type of music you would hear in a film or a game score. And to boil down nonlinear music, mostly what that means is it's music that loops. It will just play on a loop. And it's much more open in its form. And it has what's called random access. And what I mean by random access is certain things will play when you interact with a certain object or you get to a different part of the map. So you can think of it like, your character is on this part of the map and your character is running around, and when it interacts with, I don't know, a barrel or just any kind of random object, maybe a certain sound will play, and that sound will become part of the musical score. So it's very different than going from point A to point B. Instead, you have this form where you just have all these sounds you interact with and music that loops. And that was a very weird thing for me to get used to writing, because most of my life I had written pieces that would just go from start to finish. And I have a workaround for that I want to share with you in a minute. It's kind of my own way I discovered of getting around that type of thing. So an example of non-linear music I want to share with you is the City of Tears theme from Hollow Knight. Love that game. It's one of my top 3, I think. Fantastic game. So let me get this link. And before I move on, just for sake of clarity, does anyone want me to reiterate on this idea behind linear and non-linear music before I continue on? Is everyone clear so far? Okay, cool. Yes, got it. Okay, awesome. Okay, so encourage you to kind of like skip around through the track, because it's a long, like 8-minute long video. So just kind of skip around a little bit and see what's going on. But the idea is when your character progresses through the level, the music will stay on a loop. But as the character gets to different parts of the level, the music will change to a different variation of that song. So just kind of give this a check out. I'm going to watch it with you a little bit. So if you skip to like the 30-second mark and just kind of stay around that 30-second to minute and a half area, you can hear the music just playing on a loop, basically. Now, one thing I want to ask you all to do is skip like to the 8-minute mark and check out the boss fight, because the music is different, but a full piece. It would start from point A and go to point B. Inside this song, inside this piece, the sections were written to be able to loop. So what I would do is I would write this full-length piece, and I would break it up into sections. And then I would send the game developer the full song as well as the individual sections. And I would tell them, hey, this particular section of the song is meant to loop in the intro of the map. And then when your character moves to the next part of the map, the next section of the song can also be played on a loop. So that way I could write in a familiar fashion, which is a linear piece, but it was designed to work in a non-linear fashion, if that makes any sense. And I will send you the link to this piece I'm talking about. This is the theme for a game I'm writing for. It's a game called Ice Online. And this particular map is called Never Never Glades. It's like a kind of like a Lost Woods type of map. There's a lot of like fairies floating around and dark woodland creatures and, you know, things of that nature. So I wanted to create something very dark yet mystical sounding, kind of very meandering. It doesn't really have much of a direction. So I will give commentary as you listen to this. So the first few seconds are like the intro part. And that intro is just kind of meant to loop when the character's at the start of the map. And it's not around the 15-second mark when the clarinets come in that the map really opens up. And then that whole section will stay on a loop as the character explores the first part of the map. And of course, I chose guitared woodwinds because I wanted something really like earthy sounding, very woodland sounding. And then if you skip over to the minute and 11-second mark, here's the next section. So here's like the second area of the forest, and now this section of the song would be on a loop. So that was an interesting way I discovered to approach nonlinear music writing. Write the full piece with the intention of different sections being able to loop. I think as I get more familiar with writing nonlinear music in the future, I'm going to stray away from that and just try to write little mini sections of things that will just loop over and over. All right, where am I at? Doing time, all right. So composition extended. So I want to talk about this idea of motivic development. One thing you will hear in game music is this idea of recycling the main theme over and over and over. And this is a great thing because it creates a sense of cohesion. It keeps the music cohesive, like one solid unit. And you hear this all the time. So one example of that, I actually want to jump forward a little bit, is Animal Crossing. This is a game that my girlfriend became extremely obsessed over, especially in the early days of quarantine. I had to work on not developing a form of PTSD when listening to this soundtrack, because all I can think of is whenever I was quarantined. But it's a beautiful soundtrack. So I'm going to send you and what I want you all to listen to is the melody that happens in the horns, because that's where the main melody is. That's the melody that's going to be recycled over and over again. So let's kind of check that out for a second. And then whenever you're done with that, check out this next song from the Animal Crossing soundtrack. This is the 4 a.m. music. I love this track from Animal Crossing. Like it really does sound like something you would hear at 4 a.m. You know, your day is not started yet. Everything's fragmented. Nothing has solidified yet, and the soundtrack really reflects that. So in this track, you can hear a recycling of the theme. You can hear. Let me listen to it with you so I can talk a little bit. Oops. So you can hear that horn and the melodies kind of be presented in the guitar, like the very last part of the melody will play. So I think this is such a brilliant way to write game music. Such a great way to do it. And just for sake of time, I'm going to skip the 5 a.m. music. It does the same thing. So one thing I did is I tried to take the same approach to that. There's two themes I wrote for this game, overworld theme and the sadness theme. Yeah, absolutely. They sound very similar, to subtle differences. That's something that happens a whole lot in game music, and it's a very good thing to pay attention to as well. You know, if you go to this channel, the Animal Crossing, you'll find a playlist that has, oh yeah, you can click on the side here, hourly music, and you can cycle through every hour of the day in the game, and they're all a variation from each other. It's quite brilliant. So this is like such a great resource to tap into for listening purposes. So the next thing, I was going to show you the music I wrote for this game, but it's already 10:45, so I'm just going to continue on here. So I'm going to change gears a little bit. One thing I'm going to talk about next is sound effects designing. So this is my weakest suit. Composition is my strong suit. So this is my newest skill I'm learning, is sound effects designing. So sound effects are everything you hear that's not the music. Footsteps, sword slashes, voiceovers, all these things. And the important thing about sound effects designing is it's important to try and record as many of your own sounds as possible. When you do that, it will really make for a unique set of sounds, and it'll give it your own identity. And one way to use one great learning tool for this is download already made free sounds and listen to those, and then use those to build off of. So that way you can think, okay, this is what this sound sounds like. So what can I do to recreate that sound? That's one thing I did in the early days of sound effects designing. I wasn't even doing anything for games. I would open up my program and I would think, okay, I'm going to design a laser sword sound today. So I would literally record sounds of me with a knife and a kitchen colander, and I would record with my phone. I would set my phone on a table and record myself scratching the knife against the colander, and just process that sound in various ways. And that's a whole other thing I haven't talked about yet, is how to process these sounds, but that's a conversation for another day. But no, basically, like once you learn how to use your recording programs, you can drag and drop these recorded sounds in, and you can alter the pitch to make it lower or higher. You can slow them down or speed them up, and layers, put 5 different copies of the same knife scratch sound on top of each other and do what's called digital processing to make them sound completely different. I could do an entirely different presentation on that in the future. That'd be a really interesting thing to do. So sound effects, continuous and simple ways to get interesting sounds. Record the sound, you can pitch shift it, you can layer it, which means take that same sound, copy and paste it in multiple times, attach different sounds to it, reverbs, delays. That all may not make a lot of sense right now, but like I said, perhaps later I could do something where I could talk a little bit more about this. So yeah, that's one good way to get started with sound effects designing. You'll learn it's an entirely different skill set from writing. Takes a different kind of ear too. It's pretty different, but yet all the fun is composing. And that leads me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for letting me do this. I got my Instagram, Bandcamp, and Gmail. If you want to take a screenshot of that, you can always email me, and I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions or help you out with anything. So yeah, you're welcome. So with the last 10 minutes or so, can I open this up to some Q&As? You can unmute your microphones, ask me any questions you have, and I'd be happy to answer them.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, as a indie game developer, at what point of development, should I worry about the game music, sir? Should I first make a prototype of my game and then contact a sound designer, or should I just give the sound designer an idea of my game and then have him work on it at the beginning, from the beginning itself?
That is a fantastic question. There's many ways to approach that, and I'm going to split your question into 2 answers here. So with the music, I think that, and I'm just sharing from my own experiences because I'm still learning as well, so I can only talk to you from what I have experienced. But from what I've experienced with composition, it's usually best to write the music later. That can go in later. So the important thing first would be to get all your game mechanics straightened out and all those things. And it would be good to be working with a composer, but that usually wouldn't come until later. It'd be a lot like film scoring. Oftentimes in film scores, the person writing the music won't get the movie until he or she will only get the final cut. So that way there will be no changes made. So that way the composer isn't going to write a whole mess of music only to get another version sent to them and the film changed completely. And I imagine it's the same with game audio. Now with sound effects, that's quite a bit of a different thing. Because one thing I've learned that is expected of sound designers, and is something I'm still learning myself, is this idea of implementing audio. So in the beginning, I thought it was just enough to create these sounds and say, hey, here's your music files, stick them in the game. That works sometimes, but what I've actually learned is it's common for sound effects designers to be able to have the updated build of the game and then be able to work in the sounds with the animations and be able to program them in themselves. And then it will be a process of sending the game back and forth. So for sound designers, yeah, I think it's important to get in touch with the sound designer as early as possible and be sending game builds back and forth. For composition, that's not so much important. And I think that's also why most time on a team there is a composer and a sound designer. There's two, because they're two very different roles. But oftentimes, or sometimes you can find someone who can do both. So I hope that answers your question there.
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot. That cleared me
You're
out.
welcome. Mm-hmm. For me, the start comes very quick, but that's just because I think I have a very intuitive geared mind. So if someone gives me an idea, I'm usually really quick personally to conceive an idea and just start writing. So that takes literally hours, just a few usually. But what takes a lot of time after that is really carefully crafting the score after that. And that can take several hours. And are there any more questions? Anything at all? No such thing as a dumb question. Ask away, please. What could go wrong during sound designing? Sorry, I just read that. Does it ever happen that you have to redo the whole work? Yep, and I'll tell you how that. Why? Yep, absolutely. So just a moment ago, I was talking about this idea of the sound designer being able to implement audio. So something that happened to me is during my first game jam, the one I was talking about, I went into this as a sound designer having no idea how audio implementation worked. I had no idea what that even was. So what happened was I worked for about 3 or 4 hours and I made all these custom sounds like a sword slash, a character taking damage sound, all these different random things. Send them to the sound designer and or the game developer. And these sounds didn't work because they were too long. And what I mean by that is the person would slash a sword, but the sword slash reverberation sound would last several seconds after it happened. And that was because I didn't get to see the animation. So that's when we started communicating hey, how can we fix this? And that's when we discovered oh, hey, you need to know how to implement audio. But since I didn't know how to do that and we were under a time crunch, what we did is the game developer was nice enough to time out how long these sounds lasted and be okay, so now I need a sword slash sound that lasts exactly 17 seconds, 17.5 seconds. And so that's how we fix that. But yeah, that's a very good question. That is one thing that can go terribly wrong during sound designing. Among many other things, there's a million things that could go wrong. Yeah. Another important thing that can happen, or another interesting thing that can happen, that happened to me is after we figured out that problem, I sent at least well over 60 custom sounds to this person, and I sent them all as WAV files, WAV files, only to find out the game engine they were working in didn't take WAV files. It took .ogg files, I think was the name of it. And then it was a specific type of OGG. I think it was called .ogg vector, whatever that means. So I had to go and spend at least 2 more hours re-exporting everything and sending all of them to this game developer. And that happened about a day before the game was due. I was contacted at midnight and was just oh my God, none of these work. We got to figure it out. So it's important to figure out what game engine you're working with and then research what file types it takes. So that's something I would encourage to do. That was almost a catastrophe. Not the same case with music. Most of the time it just takes WAV files. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I will share a few different things actually. Let me get the actual Bandcamp instead of just one song. Hold on one second. Bandcamp. Arin Eakins. So here is my Bandcamp. And now I'm going to share my Instagram with you. I thought that was a link, but it's not. Oh, whoops. Hold on one second. Instagram. Yes, using this from my phone, not computer. Uh-oh, there's my girlfriend's Instagram. Whoops. Arin Eaking, cool. So here is my Instagram. And I'm also going to send you my YouTube. Now you will have multiple ways to contact me. YouTube, and I'll type out my Gmail for you. Cool. Like I said, please feel free to email me. You know, I will more than happily email you back when I can, and I'll answer any additional questions. That's one important thing about all this. You know, it's all a community effort, and just treat it as such. Share the knowledge. But yeah, that's all I have for you as of now. If there's no more questions, and you're very welcome. Thank you for tuning in. Very much. It was lots of fun. Yeah. Yeah, it's something that is new to me as well. You know, I just really started learning about sound designing last year. It's so funny how much of a different mindset it is from composition. It's two completely different things. Honestly, if I had it my way, I would rather be a composer than a sound designer, just because that's where most of my practice is at. But just to be all the more employable, I'm trying to get good at both. Yeah, if you all enjoyed this, maybe sometime in the future we could do another presentation, getting a little more into how to make some of this music or something, or you know, anything like that. I would love to do another one. You know, if anybody has any ideas, please email me, and I would like to put something together again. Yes, I am. Thank you all. Yeah, I'm working on a game right now called Ice Online. I can send you